Hello and welcome. Today, we're going to do something a little different. We're going on a journey right inside a final year high school science curriculum. We're going to follow the exact path a student takes, from the official blueprint all the way to how it connects to the real world, to really see how a complex subject like organic chemistry is taught and mastered.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this whole thing. First, we'll look at the actual exam plan. Then, we'll dive into learning the fundamental language of carbon. After that, we'll see how all that theory gets put into practice in the lab, scale that up to global industry, and finally, we'll take a step back and ask, why does it all matter? So imagine this. You're a student, it's the start of your final year, and the pressure is definitely on. Before you can even think about learning anything, you have to understand the challenge ahead of you. What exactly is going to be on that final exam? For any student, the very first step is to get the official game plan. And I'm not just talking about the textbook. This is the formal annual teaching plan. It's the document that lays out exactly what you need to know to pass. It's the rulebook. Okay, so the curriculum is split into two big exams. You've got paper 1, which is all physics, and then you have paper 2, which is chemistry. Now, if you look closely at that chemistry paper, one topic just jumps out: organic molecules. In fact, the study guides make it super clear that this one section makes up about a third of the entire final chemistry exam. So you know right away this is where a huge amount of your focus needs to be. So you've got the blueprint. You know it's important. Where do you even begin? Well, to tackle organic chemistry, you first have to learn its language. And trust me, it really is like learning a whole new language, with its own alphabet, its own grammar, and its own set of rules. And this entire language is built around one single, absolutely incredible element: carbon. You know, its unique ability to form these long, stable chains and rings is the whole reason we have millions of different molecules that make up pretty much everything around us, from the fuel in our cars to the very DNA in our cells. Carbon is the star of the show. Now, trying to memorize millions of different compounds would be completely impossible, right? So the first rule students learn is how to group them into families, or what chemists call a homologous series. Think of it like organizing a massive library by genre. You know, sci-fi over here, history over there. It just makes everything so much easier to find and understand. This table right here, taken straight from the study guide, is basically a student's cheat sheet. Each family you see has its own general formula, kind of like a recipe, and a special suffix in its name. So if a student sees a name ending in "all," boom, they instantly know it's an alcohol and can start to predict how it might behave. It's a powerful shortcut. But, you know, just when you think you're getting the rules down, organic chemistry throws a curveball at you: isomers. These are molecules that are like chemical twins. They have the exact same atomic ingredients, the same formula, but they're just assembled differently. And this shows the two main types students have got to know. On the left, you have a chain isomer, where the carbon backbone itself is rearranged into a different shape. And on the right is a positional isomer, where an attached atom, in this case chlorine, just jumps to a different spot on the same carbon skeleton. It's a tiny change, but it creates a whole new molecule with different properties. Of course, knowing the theory is only half the battle, right? This curriculum is specifically designed to make sure students can actually apply that knowledge. So it's time to move from the textbook page to the lab bench and get their hands dirty. One of the mandatory experiments for these grade 12 students is making esters. And this is just a brilliant choice for an experiment, because esters are the molecules behind so many familiar smells and flavors, like pineapple or pear. It's the perfect way to connect these abstract chemical structures to the real sensory world. The process itself is so methodical and precise. Students follow a recipe: add a catalyst, mix in an alcohol and a carboxylic acid, and then gently heat it up. But the final step, that's the most important one: carefully wafting the vapors toward your nose to try and identify what you've just created. And this, right here, this illustrates the whole point of doing practical work. On the left, you've got the reaction on paper, just a bunch of symbols and arrows. But on the right, you have the student actually experiencing the result of that reaction. This is that magic moment where the abstract becomes totally real. And wow, what a payoff it is. Depending on the starting ingredients they use, students can create a whole range of different scents. They might synthesize the smell of pear or pineapple, or something less pleasant like nail polish remover, or even wintergreen. It's such a powerful lesson. You can take simple, boring chemicals and just by following the rules of chemistry, create something entirely new and instantly recognizable. Okay, so now we scale up, way, way up. The very same principles that students use in a little test tube are applied every single day on a massive industrial scale to fuel our entire world. And the curriculum requires students to understand this leap from the lab to the factory. So here's a huge real-world problem for the petrochemical industry. When you refine crude oil, you get a ton of these large, heavy, kind of sludgy hydrocarbon molecules. But the real demand, where the real money is in the smaller, lighter molecules that we use for gasoline. You've got this massive supply and demand mismatch. So what's the solution? It's a chemical process called cracking. And yeah, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, using chemistry to literally break those long, low-value hydrocarbon chains into smaller, much more valuable ones. And students learn there are two main ways to do this, each with a very different goal. You've got thermocracking, which is basically brute force, extreme heat and pressure to make alkenes, which are the building blocks for plastics. Then you have catalytic cracking, which is a bit more refined. It uses a lower temperature and a special catalyst to produce the high-quality branched molecules that we need for really efficient gasoline. So the crucial point here is that this whole process is a form of modern chemical alchemy. You're taking a less desirable fraction of crude oil, represented by that long molecule on the left, and you are transforming it into high-demand products, a smaller alkane that's perfect for fuel and an alkene that's ready to be turned into plastic.
So after this entire journey, from the exam blueprint to the lab, all the way to the refinery, we have to ask the final question. What is the bigger picture here? Why does any of this really matter?
You know, this message from the writers of the study guide really brings us full circle. The curriculum isn't just a random series of facts to be memorized for a test. It's a carefully structured path that's designed to build a deep, practical understanding of the material world, empowering students with knowledge that is absolutely fundamental to modern life. And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. We followed this student's journey to understanding how we can build brand new molecules in a lab and break down old ones in a refinery. This ability to manipulate matter at the molecular level is, without a doubt, one of humanity's greatest powers. The question is, as we face all the challenges of the future, what will we choose to do with it?